All right, y'all, so I'm in Chroma Lux right now, and I'm gonna show y'all how I extract from my patch applique in order to make my tack down stitch so that I can stitch these onto hats or shirts or beanies or whatever I need to stitch on. So first thing we're gonna do is copy and paste the applique line. So that is my applique line for my patches. I'm actually gonna go in here, and you have to be in your select tool, okay? You can't be in your shaping tool. You have to be in like the resize select tool. You're gonna click for the drop down, and you're gonna click break apart. This is gonna break your applique line into 3 different sections: your placement stitch, your tack down stitch, and your final applique stitch, which would be your satin line or your faux marrow or whatever you have it as. And we're gonna delete that. We're gonna delete the entire applique stitch, and we are just going to keep the run stitches. We're going to keep the tack down stitch, and we're going to keep the placement stitch. So as you can see those right there, I actually don't want my tack down stitch to be zigzag. All right, so I think I have to go back. Let's go back to when it was regular. So because I don't want that zigzag, I'm going to change that to a run on my tack down stitch. I want both of them to be a run, and that's going to make my cleanup a lot easier after I get this patch attached. I'm going to put my placement stitch at 0 so that it is the very outside border. You can see that line change in there. And then I'm going to change my placement stitch, which is actually, I'm going to change that to my stitch down, but I'm going to change that to 40 to have it closer to the inside so that it's not sitting on my satin stitch. I want it sitting right at the edge. So as you can see, that line under there. Now we break it up. So now that I have it breaking up, I've got 2 run stitches in my applique stitch. We're going to delete that applique stitch. You see the 2 run stitches. We're going to switch the inside stitch to the outside. So the tack down stitch is actually going to go second now, or go first now, and the placement stitch is going to go second. And you want to change that stitch that is going to be the one to tack down your patch to your garment. You want to change that to a bean stitch. You don't want it as a standard stitch, you want it as a bean stitch, and that's going to make sure that it tacks down really good and it doesn't come loose. Your outside, your placement stitch, you're going to change that to 3.5 or 4.0 and change it to standard. This stitch is only so that you can see where you need to put your patch down in order to start tacking it down, and you're actually going to rip that out later, and the longer you make that stitch line, the easier it is to cut it out later, and I'll be showing y'all how I do that later in this video. So that's all set. I now have my stitches where I need them to be, and I can save this file, and then I can save it as a DST on my USB. So we will do that real quick and get it rolling, y'all. That's it. It's time to show you how we do it on the machine. All right, so now I got my patch stitched out. Got a few of them. Got my patch, got my hat. So we hit that on the hoop. A little bit of painter's tape for protection of my bill on the EM1010 machine, because the back rubs the bill. There's not enough clearance for it not to. I think my thread color is supposed to be... Alright. Let's see if we can bring y'all in closer. Alright, so just like I just got done digitizing, first, just gonna run my run stitch. This is just my placement stitch right here. I actually like to let the first stitch of my next one run. That way it's easier for me to get the placement whenever I'm putting my patch on. So let me set you back up on the tripod. All right, so then I'm just line up my patch with my placement stitch. And get it lined up the best you can. On flats, it works a lot better because you don't have the distortion of the hat. Make sure you have your machine turned down on your screen. Your two arrows up here are your speed. I usually run at about 400 or so. I'm gonna go ahead and press start. Once it starts, I want to make sure I'm still centered. Now, if you're gonna have your hands up here, if you're gonna have your hands up here whenever you are running the machine, you need to be extremely careful not to stitch your finger. That won't be no fun. I like to just watch it as it's stitching and make sure it's following a straight line. And you can always press your sometimes I find I've got to maneuver around as it's stitching. Especially on hats. That is how I am using my embroidery machine to stitch patches onto hats. So the patch is now stitched on. Line is fairly clean. Now you can see that you can see your placement stitch on the outside, right? So what I'm going to do, this is why we did the long stitches whenever we were doing our placement stitch run. All I gotta do is stick my, see if I can get y'all in there. All I gotta do is stick my scissors. See how that thread just pops right up, right there. Now I can come up here. You can come grab this thread and that's gonna pull right out. And you just remove your placement stitch. Get it out the way. If you get snagged, go back to the other side. Cut a few more of those white pieces. It's always, whenever you're cutting out thread, you want to cut out your bobbin. Don't cut from the front, always cut from the back and cut your bobbin. Your bobbin is your anchor. So once you cut your anchor, the top will release. And then you can just pull the top thread out. But if you cut from the top, if you're cutting your top thread from the top, you're gonna have to cut each individual piece because it's still gonna be anchored down by the bobbin. So you have to cut each individual piece. And then you're gonna have to try to clean it up on the front because the little tips of the pieces you cut are gonna be sticking up still. out the front. So always tear your thread out from the back. That's it. That's it, y'all. It's pretty simple. Can be dangerous on that machine though. And as you saw, I did maneuver around a little bit. If I saw that the patch was starting to get on the line as it was stitching, because of the concave of the hat, then I would just barely tap over whichever direction I needed it to go in order to stay straight on my controls, which these are the buttons that I was using to move, and it'll still move. You see that? Barely moves. It'll still move even whenever you're in a design and running it.